Hello, I just finished the 40-day image workbook with a group of women with Heather Creekmore. My takeaway for the whole book was actually on the 39th day about how God gets all the glory and how we go around and we're looking for compliments or on how we dress, how we look, or just our achievements, but ultimately that we give the glory to God because He created us to worship Him. And going forward, anytime that I am looking for a compliment or anytime that I am trying to achieve something other that is not for God, I am going to say that God gets all the glory. Thank you again for the group. That was awesome.
And thank you for sharing how the group went for you. That was one of our participants from the 40-day reading challenge that we did during Lent. I'm Heather Creekmore. I'm glad you're here today. Today we're talking aging, but hey, if you are still interested in going through the 40-day body image workbook, my brand new workbook, you can go with it with a group of women, just like the woman in that testimony did. We start May 21st and we're going to wrap up the last week of June. It'll be 6 weeks. I'd love to have you be a part. Go to improvebodyimage.com to learn more. Today, we are talking about 3 secrets to aging well. Doesn't everyone need to know that? I think no matter what age you are, we all want to age well, and I think it's a good desire. But we may be getting some confusing messages from culture on what aging well really means. So today we're going to look at what the Bible has to say and talk about what it really means to age well on this earth while keeping an eternal perspective, while remembering that we are eternal beings, not temporal beings. And that really does change everything. I'm glad you're here for it today. If you're brand new to the show, go to improvebodyimage.com and we've got some great suggestions there on episodes you can start with. But I'm glad you're here for this one. Let's go. Welcome to Compared to Who, the podcast to help you make peace with your body so you can savor God's rest and feel His love. If you're tired of fighting body image the world's way, Compared to Who is the show for you. You've likely heard lots of talk about loving your body, but my goal is different. Striving to fall in love with stretch marks and cellulite is a little silly to me. Instead, I want to encourage you and remind you with the truth of Scripture that you are seen, you are known, and you are loved no matter what your size or shape. Here, the pressure is off. If you're looking for real talk, biblical encouragement, and regular reminders that God loves you and you're not alone, you've come to the right place. I hope you enjoy today's show, and hey, tell a friend about it. So if we don't really have a choice about aging, what does it mean to age well? And why do we feel this angst, or I don't know, this knots in our stomach or in our head over the concept of aging? I think it's the messages we get from the culture around us. And we talked a little bit about this on the show already over the past couple of weeks. But today I want to dig in even further because, this anti-aging thing isn't really as new as we think it is. Mark Twain, in his senior years, said this famously: life would be infinitely happier if we could only be born at the age of 80 and gradually approach 18. That kind of goes right along with that quote you may be familiar with that says, youth is wasted on the young, right? But even Twain, he's still fairly modern compared to some of the other accounts we have of people dreading aging. The ancient Greek poet Homer, he called old age loathsome. Shakespeare called aging the hideous winter. But we can go back even further than that. And we know that Ponce de Leon was not really looking for the fountain of youth. The myth has been dispelled, but everyone said he was. In fact, if you go to St. Augustine, Florida, there is a fountain there that smells like sulfur-rich water that no one would ever want to get in or drink, but it's supposed to be a fountain of youth. I mean, civilizations from ancient times have been looking for some cure to aging. In fact, I just watched the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade movie with my kids this past weekend and was reminded that even a plot line in that was that if you were somehow able to drink from the cup that Jesus drank from at the Last Supper, that would provide you some sort of anti-aging, miracle, life-extending solution. So this is not new, which makes it kind of humorous or ironic maybe that we are still looking for magic pills and magic potions to help us solve the aging problem. In fact, one of the articles I read researching said that they're thinking about classifying aging as a disease, which made me laugh because it's a disease we all have, and there's 100% chance that you are aging. So why, as a culture, do we struggle so much with aging? And is there a way that we can do better? Is there a way we can age well? My brand new 30-day devotional, Aging Gratefully, is all about how we can age with gratitude, how we can be thankful that we're aging. And I think it's really helpful, if I say so myself. But how can we age well as believers and followers of Jesus Christ who know that this world isn't our home? This isn't the end of the story when we die here. So what does it look like to age well? That's where we're going today. And let's start with number one. I think the first point to us aging well as Christians is to understand that if we make aging all about our bodies, we have missed out on the point of life. Now, if you search how to age well on the internet or causes of aging or any variety of those search terms, almost every single entry, I mean, there was like 160 million of them, so I can't say that I got through every page of the Google search, but most of them all talk about the physical. Stop smoking, drink less, eat right, exercise more. In fact, I Googled the number one cause of aging, which is kind of a funny search term in and of itself, right? Because the cause of aging is living, right? The fact that you're alive means you're aging. But the number one cause of aging, it said, was sun damage. And there wasn't even really any deliberation among Google results on that. It was sun damage is the number one cause of aging. But that's just physical. That's just what's happening to your body. The focus in all of that is body, 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 body. Aging is about your body and nothing else. And maybe you've even heard it. Age is just a state of mind, right? So somehow we can defy what's happening with our bodies if we can just keep our mental attitude correct and young, right? If I feel 40, I can be 40 as long as I want to. If I feel 20, I can be 20 as long as I want to. And one of the articles I read, which I thought was just really beautiful the way it said it, it was and part of the problem is Americans have magical thinking. And I was like, yes, that's it. It is magical thinking. And the example it used was 60 is the new 40. It's wonderful that you feel young at 60, but 60 is not 40. That is magical thinking. That is kind of an avoidance of reality. So please hear me. I'm not saying that to be Debbie Downer. Oh goodness, you should feel old. Not at all. But rather, as believers and followers of Jesus Christ, I don't think we have to play games with ourselves. I don't think we have to try to fool ourselves into thinking that we're younger than we are or pretending we're a different age or any of those games, Because ultimately, those games are about trying to outsmart aging. Why? So that we can live forever or feel like we're going to live forever. But the truth is, the Bible reminds us over and over again, we don't get to live forever, right? There is an eternity. This world and our life here will come to an end. And we really don't know when that's going to happen. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. And again, not to be Debbie Downer, but to just be realistic. If the only aspect of aging that we are obsessing over or stressing over is what is happening to our bodies, we are missing out on valuable time that is ticking away because we are getting older. And if I put my best efforts, dare I say all my efforts, into trying to keep my body young, into trying to keep my body from aging, what am I missing out on? What aspects of the short life I have been given am I missing because I put so much focus on trying to stay looking young? You know, it's interesting, all these secrets to age well, like I said, they were all about your body. But did you know that loneliness has an equivalent risk factor to your health that's equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day? This was a Harvard study of adult development. It was a 75-year longitudinal study of men, okay? And if you are lonely, you shorten your lifespan by 8 years. Why did none of these how to age well or how to age, why did none of these articles have friends or be in community? Why weren't these things on the top of the list? Stop smoking was on all of them, but why not a call to have friends? Y'all, because we've put way too much focus on our physical health and the way we look externally. We're missing some things on this aging thing. Another study, similar related study, kind of distinguishes between what they call social isolation and loneliness. So you can be alone, you can be socially isolated without being lonely, okay? But you can also be lonely and be in community where you're not socially isolated. But those who were more lonely were about 40% more likely to die over the next 4 years. And I don't know what age group this study was, but get this. Those who were socially isolated in this test group were 75% more likely to die faster. So being in community, having friends, these are really important aspects to this whole aging well equation that I think we miss when we uber focus on trying to keep our bodies young or at least looking young. And in my Aging Gratefully devotional, I have a couple different chapters, a couple different days that focus on the importance of finding community and having friends at midlife, and how, like, realistically, it can be harder when the season of life changes, or if you're moving because the season of life is changing, right? That can make it really difficult to have community and friends, but how vitally important that is. And so, friend, today, if you've been like stressing about keeping your physical body looking young to the exclusion of being engaged in Christian community or spending time with Christian friends, like if you're prioritizing your workouts over spending time with Christian friends, like you are missing out on one of the keys to aging well, which is being with people. We were designed to be in community with people. We were not meant to live alone. Beyond that, what does God have for you to do? Friend, if you haven't yet got about his mission for your life, if you haven't felt like you have clear direction from the Lord as to what he's asking you to do, and by that I mean serve, use your gifts, like getting on mission for him, loving him well, loving others well, if you've just kind of checked the Christian box, like you've got your fire insurance, like I know I'm going to heaven because I'm a Christian and I go to church, but yet practically you kind of live your life just like everyone else does. You kind of just go to work and do the things. And okay, yeah, you go to church and you pray and you read your Bible some. But friends, if God hasn't radically transformed your life to where you know that there's more than just this world, that you are living on mission for him, that he has gifted and called you to do things, friends, as a Christian, you're missing out on really what the Christian life is all about, frankly. But friend, that's how you age well. There is nothing that is more exciting and energizing for us as believers and followers of Jesus Christ than when we figure out what it is he made us for. I like to say that God made me on purpose for a purpose, and that includes my body. He knew exactly what he was doing when he physically made me. And when I figured out kind of what that was, I'm not going to say any of us really have it all figured out, right? You just kind of take one step after the other towards doing what he's called you to do, and you kind of figure it out along the way. But friend, there was nothing more energizing than that for me. And honestly, it helped my body image issues a ton because I was able to fully understand finally that I wasn't made to just be looked at, that I was more than just a body, that my body was the vehicle through which I could do the things that God has called me to do. But life isn't all about my body. It's about being busy for the Lord. Who can I love well through my body? How can I serve God well through my body? And so, friend, if you haven't figured out what your mission is, I encourage you to do that. Take a spiritual gifts test. I have some other recommendations in the 30-day devotional, Aging Gratefully. I talk all about this, making God your mission accomplice, right? Where you are not on your own mission to try to stay young or to get a body. You are on his mission, right? It's like Mission Impossible. Like he sends you a secret message should you choose to accept it, and then the message self-destructs. Like it's not quite that mysterious, but it's kind of fun because he has something for you to do. And guess what? That's going to help you age well because you are going to be energized when you are doing what he has called and made you to do. Okay, so point one is if you want to age well, don't make aging all about your body. And remember that God made you on purpose for a purpose. Ask, what does he have you to do? And don't be alone. If you want to age well, have friends, be in community, get back in church, friend. Be with people, Christian people that will uplift you, exhort you, encourage you, spur you on to follow Jesus well and live a radical life for him that will energize you. And that's going to help you age well, better than any anti-aging cream. Okay, number 2. I talked a little bit about facing reality. And most of us, that might have sounded a little bit of Debbie Downer here, but face reality with hope and gratitude, right? Our culture tells us that aging is bad. In fact, an interesting study I found looked at the ethical arguments around whether or not anti-aging medicine should be pursued. Like, because, there's I don't know if you've heard of telomeres, which are these like strands of your DNA. And if you can like lengthen your telomeres, there's a connection to longevity because your telomeres are naturally like shrinking as you get older. And so some geneticists and scientists believe that if you can find a way to stop your telomeres from shrinking, that you will live longer. So it's really fascinating science. Like, we're talking down to this like genetic, like a cellular level of trying to figure out ways that people can live longer. But this study talked about like that there's these ethical arguments against this kind of research or even creating like a medicine that could help that happen. And here's the 6 ethical arguments against it. First, inequity, right? So if there is this medicine, it's probably going to be expensive. And this article says that the poor would die young by the millions while the rich refuse to age. The rich would get to live longer because they would be able to afford it or have the insurance that paid for it or whatever. The second ethical argument against the anti-aging medicine is that it denies aging's immutability, right? That aging should have the ability to change us, and this medicine would stop that, potentially. The third is dominating nature, altering and commodifying ourselves. I thought that was really interesting, right? Because if we can create a medicine that keeps us from aging, like, why are we doing that? And I think we're doing that to the point of this article because we have made ourselves a commodity. We believe that we are more valuable than potentially we are, that we should live longer, that we should have the right to outlive people from past generations because of how valuable we are. We are a commodity that deserves this kind of investment. Number 4 is overpopulation, that the circle of life stuff. If people don't die and then new people are born, there's going to be too many people. The 5th one is that with no natural deadline, it's called ennui. With no natural deadline, life itself outlives its value, which is kind of an interesting concept. I don't know if we have time to go into all of that today. And then the 6th one, ageism, prejudice against the old and the young. So essentially, if aging is within our control, and then prejudice against the old would get even worse, right? Because you should be able to stop it. It's within your control. But then the paper evaluates 4 ethical arguments in favor of anti-aging medicine. And these are really interesting, right? The first one is because of beneficence, that we have a duty to maintain health and prevent disease and death. No, that is just laughable to me because we cannot prevent death. We have a 100% chance of dying. And yet the number one reason to pursue anti-aging medicine is because we have a duty to maintain our health and prevent disease and death. But we're all going to die of something. And so at what age then is it appropriate to allow for disease and death? Or do they really think we should live forever? I'm not sure. And by live forever, I mean live forever in this body, in this decaying body. I don't know, but that just sounds weird to me. The second one is efficiency. If we slow down aging, it would reduce the rates for all the most common causes of death in developed societies. The third one is limited autonomy. We have freedom to purchase anti-aging medicines that may or may not work as long as they're not harmful. So, right, you can do the science, and if you've got the money to pay for it, you can pay for it. And as long as you're not hurting anyone, why not? And then the fourth one is improved quality of life, more active, healthier, and wiser. Anti-aging medicine would allow for longer, more healthier, active life, and the wisdom you get from experience. So wouldn't it be great if people could live longer so they could be healthy and live life and experience things and get wiser, right? So all of these are the pros and cons, if you will, of anti-aging medicine, anti-aging research, right? But in all of that, friend, I just wonder where scripture's at. And I think of the verse from Luke 9:24, whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. So the question comes back to, why do you want to live longer? If the answer is anything other than to do more for God's kingdom, to have more time, to store up my crowns in heaven, we do have important work to do here, right? The harvest is great, but the workers are few. And yet, is that why we're afraid of aging? Is that why we want to live longer? Or is there something else going on? Is there something else at play? Are we afraid? Are we afraid of eternity? Are we afraid of what's next? Are we afraid of what's going to happen to us when we're older? I mean, the stress of that is real and understandable. I'm not Like, of course, like it's concerning to think about what will happen to us as our bodies decay or as our minds decay, right? Like of course there's reasonable concern there. But is that why we're fighting to live longer? I really think, friends, we have to check our theology here. What do we believe about ourselves and this world we live in and our purpose and eternity, right? Every day we live here on this earth, heaven is one day closer, regardless of your age. Heaven is always one day closer. Are we planning on that? Or are we stuck, obsessed with the here and now? Are we so focused on ourselves and today and our lives and what's going on in our lives and how busy our lives are and what's important in our little lives today, and that we forget about eternity? Are we even able to think about eternity? And then going back to those fears, right? Like, of course they're reasonable. But God tells us like not to fear because he's with us. And I think our greatest fear is suffering, right? That it's going to hurt to get older. It's going to hurt when our bodies can't move like they used to move. It's going to hurt when our minds don't function like we want them to, right? But suffering, Paul Tripp says, reveals our unrealistic expectations about this world, right? What if suffering is what prepares us for the world to come? Because we've had to develop character through it. We've had to actually develop trust in God that goes deeper because we can no longer provide for ourselves like we used to. And we have to trust him. We have to learn that he is faithful and good and trustworthy because of our suffering. Yikes. I mean, no one wants to sign up for suffering. And yet, what if it brings a depth to our character? What if it takes us out of the shallow waters of a light trust into a deeper trust that we can then pass on to others and really show and exemplify to others, even those younger than us, how faithful God is? Friend, yes, we're aging, but I think we have so much to be thankful for. And like I talked about in my book, like I believe that the older I get, the deeper my trust in the Lord should grow, because I can look back on all those years that he's been faithful to me and see how trustworthy he is. And then when I look ahead and I want to be afraid and I want to say, I don't know about that, God, like what's going to happen if, what's going to happen when, what's going to happen? And I can say, but you know what? He has always been faithful. He's been good to me. Why would he stop being good to me just because I'm getting older? No, I can trust that he's going to be faithful all of my days. Every day that he gives me is a gift, and he will be with me in it. And that gives me hope and gratitude as I think about getting older. I don't have to fight it. I don't have to do everything possible, drive myself crazy trying to prevent it. I can walk forward into aging, trusting the Lord. And then back to that verse in Luke, whoever would save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. I can say, this life is yours, God. Every day you give me is a gift. How do you want me to use this life today? How can I give my life away to you today so that I can enjoy the life to come? Because I know I've lived this life well for you. And that kind of ties beautifully to my third point today. Remember, and this is a Paul Tripp quote, remember that you are a forever person, right? Our culture doesn't get that, right? Our world is very temporary, and we put so much emphasis in the temporary. And I think that's why we put so much emphasis on anti-aging things, because we are so focused on the temporary. We so much worship the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings, and we put all of this emphasis on youth and beauty. And we forget what Scripture promises, that beauty fades, that our bodies are wasting away. but that's just for here. And you're a forever person. And here is like a blip on the screen of forever, right? We were meant to have a long view of life. We were meant to not die. Now, sin changed that, but I think that's why we're so uncomfortable with the concept of death and aging, right? It's uncomfortable because of what sin did, but inside we know we were created to live forever. And thinking of yourself as a forever person is a radical shift in the way you view your life and really what you do with this life, right? Because it allows us to see, we can't clearly see, but it allows us to see what this life is in the scope of eternity and recognize that there is so much more that's important than just the here and now. Paul Tripp talks about how our lack of an eternal perspective is really killing us, right? Because without this eternal perspective, our agenda here, like what we do here in this world, is just like so overloaded with all of our hopes and our dreams and our expectations and the ways we try to make this world we live in our own paradise, and how we drive ourselves and how we drive others crazy trying to make it this paradise that it can never become, because we live in a sinful, fallen world where nothing will ever be paradise here. And how we put so much thought and effort and hope into this world that we drive ourselves crazy and make a big mess. When in reality, this is not where our hope is supposed to be. This is not where our dreams are supposed to be. And so, my friend, if you have body image issues, if you've put your hopes and dreams into creating a more perfect world because you have a better, let's say, even say healthier, but better looking body, and you believe that's going to unlock paradise, friend, it won't. Heaven has a place and it's not here. And the good news is, if you're a Christian, this is the only hell you're ever going to experience. But this isn't heaven. And all of these idols, like the body image idol, like the beauty idol, like even the love idol, like all of these idols call out to us that if we can just get it all right, get it all straight, like try not to look older, try to get the right body, try to do everything perfectly, try to be this kind of person, then everything will go great here. It's just a false heaven. It's never going to happen here. So what does it look like to embrace the reality that I'm a forever person? I'm going to live forever. What am I doing to plan for that? Am I spending more time fighting aging here for the short temporal life than I am planning for what's ahead in heaven and the life to come? And how I want my encounter with Jesus to go? What am I focusing on? And guess what? When you get to heaven, Jesus isn't going to ask you how many macros you eat every day. He's not going to say, I can't believe you did that with sugar. He's going to say, what did you do with the one life I gave you? How'd you love other people well? Did you spend too much time focused counting your macros and counting your sugar? Or did you love people well? Did you love me well? Were you an ambassador for me? Did you try to make heaven crowded? Or were you really just focused on how your body looks and trying to stay young and trying to eat healthy so you can keep your body young so you can live longer? Why? So you can keep your body young so you can live longer. Why? So you can keep your body young. Like, oh, please, friends, that's not a loop we want to be caught in. We've got one life. Let's make it matter. Yeah, treat your body well. Yeah. Sure, exercise, do the things that it says to try to keep your body healthy. Okay. But at the end of the day, you're a forever person. What you do for your body will come to an end. It will fade. It will not last. What you do for Jesus and his kingdom will be with you forever. So next week on the show, I went ahead and I clicked on every one of those Facebook ads that was on how to age well or how to lose weight and age well. And I watched the master classes. and I compared all of their suggestions, all their recommendations for how to eat and how to live so we can live longer and age well. And I'm going to talk to you next week in a 2-part show about everything I found there. But friends, you know the thing I didn't find there? The thing I didn't find there was any kind of eternal perspective. And that's what we need if we want to age well. Hey, I'm glad you're here today. I hope you were encouraged by something today, maybe spurred on to get after what the Lord wants you to get after and stop worrying about whether or not you look older or whether or not your body's changing. Oh, friend, we've got more important things to do than to try to make the mirror scale happy. And most of us know we've been trying to make the mirror and scale happy for a long time. They'll never be happy, especially not as we age. So let's worry about pleasing God instead. Hey, I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye-bye.